Desjardins from the Monarch Athletic Club will have hip 5. Stephanie Ryal will have hip 6, although it looks like she might be a scratch here. So that is Asia Dwyer. There is Sophie Black. Lawrence Gauthier will have hip number 9. She was 5th last year. And Natasha Bolger will have hip 10, the field for the women's 10,000 meter Canadian Championship.
Well, Adam, a field of 10 has been narrowed to 9, and as you mentioned, Laurence Gauthier, she'll wear hip number 9. The St. Laurent Select standout, 5th last year and the only returner to this field. But that doesn't mean that it is lacking in talent, and right away to the early lead, Florence Caron. Now, she is coming off a fantastic performance at those NCAA championships, competing for Penn State, as you mentioned, and has just had a really standout year. 11th at those NCAA championships. And look at the separation right away between our top 3. Caron, the tallest of those 3, leads Salome tucked in 3rd. And then splitting them is Gracelyn Larkin. And like I said, I had the pleasure of being on site for the Canadian 10K Road Championships as part of that Run Ottawa weekend a few weeks ago. And Gracelyn Larkin said, I'm just really enjoying racing. She has so much experience in the NCAA system, putting that to good use, but also finding her own way as a pro now. You know, it's so different coming off of that NCAA collegiate career where you're with your team all the time, and now you have to sort of forge your own path. But she has turned into an excellent competitive racer, like a really good championship racer, I should say, and she's brimming with confidence and very comfortably tucked in 2nd there behind our leader, Caron.
It's quite a gap they've opened up on this opening lap. Coming through the opening 400 at about 80 seconds.
And I'm not entirely surprised to see that, Adam. Again, this is a long race. I should mention Canadian record holder Andrea Sakafian goes back to 2021, 31:13.94. Not to make this about me, but also had the pleasure of being on site and calling splits for Andrea when she set that race in California. We both qualified for the Olympics that weekend, her in the 10, me in the 5. And that is a very impressive time. Going to be really difficult to beat tonight or at any point in the future. But this is a grueling event. You have to stay so focused in a way that you don't on the track, or on the road, I should say, because it's so many laps. And it can get in your head unless you break it down into more sort of bite-sized chunks. So I'm not surprised to see these 3 separating. They are the class of the field, but also they do well to stick together, Adam, because as soon as some separation happens, it becomes a very lonely couple dozen laps.
So they opened up in 80 seconds, and they're going to come through 800 meters in about 2:40, so sticking right around that 80-second lap pace.
This is what you need to do in a 10,000 on the track. You need to become pretty metronomic. Just lock into a pace and then stick with it for as long as you can. 80 seconds per lap would put them right around 33:20. That would be an excellent time. And they're coming up on their first kilometer, so we'll make sure to give you some K splits here. And again, what is a very, very long race. It's kind of like being on a rat wheel. You just have to turn your brain off and focus in on your form. 3:19 unofficially through that opening lap. As we said, 80 seconds, easy math. That's 3:20 per kilometer. They're right under that, and Larkin looks fantastic. The fact that she's moving out on the outside shoulder of Caron this early on means that she is wanting to keep this pace going. And these 3 athletes, if they, in my opinion, were their wisest selves, they might have had a bit of a conversation beforehand about, let's trade off some laps for at least that first 5,000 meters. Let's share the load up front, and then it could be every woman for herself after that. But great to see these 3 sticking together and really putting down a solid pace.
The trio at the front continue to pull away from the rest of the field. Karan, Larkin, and Nira Rakundun. And there is the rest of the field on the left side of your screen. Okay, it looks like a pretty big gap, and it is right now, but this is still early days in this race. What is the strategy if you're in that chase pack right now?
Well, I think it's pretty similar to what's happening up front. We're seeing a familiar pattern playing out here. Top three, again, looking really comfortable, sticking together. No lead change, which does surprise me a little bit. The fact that Karan has continued leading, although Larkin is running the longer distance on the outside just to stay on her shoulder. What's happening in the back there with those four, and you see Asia Dwyer in the white kit just holding on to the back of that four. You want to work together as a unit. Of course, it's a race, it's a competition, but it's not, the Olympics. It's also not a huge field. So it gets really lonely really fast if there's separation. That'll happen at some point, but ideally you don't want that to happen until 7K, 8K into the race. So I'm glad to see those three. As we see on the right side of screen now, Larkin making a move to the front. She's willing to share in the lead here, give Karan a little bit of relief. And interestingly, Salome seems to be checking her watch the most. So she's really concerned about those splits moving up on the outside of Karan as well. But in that chase pack, as you mentioned, these four women and then a fifth just hanging on the back would do well to work together, do a little bit of communication. It doesn't hurt to talk on the track and make sure that you're, checking in with each other, saying it's your turn to take a couple laps, give me some relief. And as I say that, here comes Salome on the outside, the Rwandan standout. We should mention she has an unbelievable PB of 31:45.82. That is both a Rwandan national record and a national U20 record set back in 2016. So she is a very capable athlete and just now splitting the difference between Larkin and Karan. This is going to turn into, I think, a very exciting race up front.
So they went through 2K in 6:42, so that is a 3:23 second K split. So,
and just as I said, that's well, it is, but that's okay. And this is where this lead change is actually something I really like to see. So you see Salome moving around the outside there. Not my ideal place to pass. You want to save that for the straightaways because you're exerting a little more energy on the curve. But nonetheless, again, it's a long race, and these three doing well to work together. As we said, Salome coming off of some fantastic performances on the road. She is more known for the road. She's coming off a win at the Under Armour Toronto 10K last Saturday. Looked really strong in that race. And runs for the Ottawa Lions, so she's very proudly representing the nation's capital as well. As we said, Karan coming off of NCAA experience, so too Larkin, as well as winning those national championships in the 10K road section a couple weeks ago. And if I were Salome right now, I would just make a bit of a stronger move to the front and then tuck in ahead of Larkin. Give her a little bit of a break. Again, these three can play musical chairs and just give each other some reprieve so that no one athlete is doing too much work up front for that opening 5K. So coming up on 3K here, again, 6:42 through that opening 2,000 meters. Nira Rakundo 9:24 unofficially on the clock, just on the outside of Larkin. Larkin's doing a great job of holding her position on the inside, not running a step more than she needs to. So this is a fantastic performance by these three. And in fact, I'm sorry, we're coming up on 3K now, my bad.
So they come through 3K about 10:05. So that's about another, or that is another 323 kilometer, as I quickly try and do the math, which is always dangerous for me. No, 323, yes. So 319 to open, and back-to-back 323s for our lead three.
So they're right around 33:30 pace. This is still really solid running. Again, it's a championship style race. You've got some great talent, you've got some great ability, but again, it's not, you know, an Olympic qualifier. It's not a race where you're putting the pedal to the metal and trying to come away with, you know, the necessarily a PB, although again, really, really solid running by these three. I just wish we could see Nira Rakundo make a move to the front. She's running so many more steps than she needs to on the outside there, Adam. She wants to stay out of trouble, and I get that, but there's not a ton of traffic. It's a trio up front. They're doing a great job. Larkin is just, again, maintaining that inside position beautifully, and she, to me, looks the most relaxed right now. Karan also looks relaxed behind her, knows that she's coming off of a big lifetime best at those NCAA championships. All she has to do is kind of jump on the wagon now and go for a ride. That is the best spot to be at this point in this race.
So it continues to be Larkin, ever so slightly in the lead. Ni Rarakundo out wide on her now. She finished 27th in this race at the 2016 Olympics in Rio de Janeiro. Ran a 32:07.80 there, did Ni Rarakundo. Again, represents Rwanda internationally.
And that was a great year for her, a great set of years, actually. So again, that in 2016 was when she set that national record and that national U20 record for Rwanda. She also holds records in the half marathon at 1:08.48. That's really swift. That was set in 2018, as well as the 5,000 meter record at 15:34.91. That was back in 2017. So again, that sort of 2016 to 2018 era was a shining few years for Nira Rakundo. And you see the chase pack there. That's Laura Desjardins in the pink, just falling off of the two athletes in front of her. A little bit of a glance behind for our fourth place athlete at the moment. But again, that, you know, as soon as you fall off, especially before that 5,000 meter mark, it can become a very lonely endeavor.
And they just came through 4 kilometers there in 13:26. So that kilometer a little quicker. That was a 3:21 split.
This becomes an interesting point in the race, Adam, because our leaders are about to have their first lapped situation. This is where in a race this long, you can start having lines of sight towards runners that aren't necessarily your direct competition. You're about to lap them. They're, not in the mix with you anymore, but it can really help mentally to keep you engaged, keep that stride quick, keep your mind really focused on the task at hand. As soon as you see an athlete in front of you, there's a little bit of traffic. You have to go wide. You see that now. All three will sort of slingshot around this lapped athlete. But that can really, really help. And sometimes it helps the lapped athlete as well, because they can just re-engage, get back sort of on the back of that train, even for a couple seconds, enjoy the momentum going past them. And I believe that is hip number 10. That is Natasha Bolger out of Club 3D being lapped right now. Great performer in her own right. But this trio there's just no separation between them. And Nira Rakundo doing so much extra work on that outside. That's the kind of thing that can add up, especially if it comes down to a kick over that last 1,000 meters or so.
Larkin still has the slight edge on Rarakundo. Larkin looking for her third Canadian national title. Mentioned that she won the 10-kilometer road title back earlier this year. She was also the 5,000-meter Canadian champion back in 2022. And they are coming up to the halfway point here. And they will come to the halfway point at about 16:47.
Well, Adam, I think there are several runners that...
Sorry, that's another 3:21 split for them on that kilometer.
It is, and I was going to say that would be a time that I think most runners in Canada would be thrilled about for a 5,000-meter outright. So 16:47 for these women. You can tell that things are just starting to clip along a little bit more now. Nira Rakundo, as I said, doing a lot of work on the outside, but she looks really relaxed. She's got that sort of dynamic but relaxed arm carriage. She's the shortest of the three athletes. She's running so much further than the rest of these runners, but she looks great. And this is, really good feedback. That halfway mark can sometimes reinvigorate you. It can say, okay, we've gone through this. We know what that projects us to be for the full 10,000 meters. Karan doing a great job of sticking to them like Velcro as well. You see Asia Dwyer there in the white kit. She's about to be lapped too. This is only her second track race, I should say. And on that note, Adam, this is really fun because so many road runners are coming to the track sometimes for the first, second, or third time in their careers. They're very accomplished on the road. They're used to running on the road in the half marathon, the 10K, but they're coming to the track and it's a bit more of a focused event. You have this fishbowl effect where you've got the crowd around you, they're cheering you on, you have the spotlight on you, and you don't, of course, have, the throngs of runners that you do in a road race. And it's a really different experience, but I'm glad to see folks like Asia out there trying to mix things up with the best. And as I said earlier, our leaders are going to be sort of stalking her down and using her as good focus and momentum as they enter the meat of this race, approaching the 6K mark.
Now, with all these road runners moving towards the track, are you track athletes nice to them, or are you trying to protect your turf?
We're always nice, but I gotta say, if you have some experience running on the track, like I said, there's a reason that there is a different classification in terms of sport from road and track. It's an entirely different environment. It's a entirely different feel when all of a sudden you have to focus on this many laps at once. You can kind of turn your brain off on the road, not so on the track. You're getting feedback all the time. And I think the The track athletes have a little bit of an edge here. By the way, Adam, I should say that's Rachel Hanna on the infield. You see her there with her partner. And Rachel is one of the athletes that races the most in Ontario, both on the road and the track. She told me she was taking a little bit of a break after coming off of a really fantastic second place finish at that Under Armour Toronto 10K last Saturday. Great to see her out supporting these athletes. She's a coach as well. She's a registered dietitian, and so she is just a staple in the Ontario and Canadian running scene. And she would be one of the athletes who would probably give the best advice about how to translate your road experience into a track race.
The leaders just came through 6K, and they did so in 20:08. And that means that was another 321 kilometers. So consistency is the name of the game right now. They opened with a 319 kilometer, then back-to-back kilometers of 323, and now it's 3 straight 321 clockings.
Really excellent view on our split screen here, so you can see those 3 runners up front. Things have not changed in the least over the last little while, and they're a really good shot too of our chasers. That is Sophie Black wearing hip number 8 and Jade Berube wearing hip 4. Those two have just stuck like glue together as well. Sophie Black comes in as a really good 3,000, 5,000 meter runner. She does have a road 10K best of 35:32 that was set in Ottawa, as I mentioned a few weeks ago. But she's got all kinds of experience behind her in the multis. So I think there's something to be said for moving up in distance, moving up with a focus on the track in the longer events, but coming from a real strength background. And she looks really composed at the moment. Like I said, sitting just behind her, Jade Berube out of Club Saint Laurent Select. We've talked about them lots in the past as well. And Jade Berube coming off a 35:04, so just beating Black at those Canadian 10K Road Championships 3 weeks ago, almost a month ago now. She's got a 1:15:18 half marathon best that was also set this year, and she's got lots of strong performances this year in total. She also has a 16:30:51 to her name from last year in London on the track.
How are the legs feeling at this point, Kate?
Well, it's interesting. Again, this is where having a little bit of track experience can really work to these runners' advantage. If all you do is run roads, that is a hard surface. It beats you up in a different way. The track, softer, springier. In theory, that's great, but you're also turning left a lot of times. So that can take a toll, and if you're not used to it, it's interesting. I think, you know, I've chatted with lots of road runners who move to the track and say, oh, it's so soft, it's so forgiving, you know, it's going to feel so much easier. It can zap the legs a little bit more than you think, and it can also, you know, take its toll, like I said, turn after turn after turn. This is not only a lot of laps, it's a lot of corners.
And that was the 7K split for our leaders. And that last lap, 3:23.
So this is the first real separation we've seen in this race. When I talk about the meat of a race, this is what I mean. You asked about the legs. It's not so much the legs as it is the mind. Of course, the body's hurting, but you have to convince yourself to keep hurting for what feels like a lot longer. 3K left to go, and it's still Caron and Larkin. And in fact, that was really interesting. Larkin made an intentional outward move to the outside of lane 1, which you don't usually do on a turn unless you know that the person with you is going to basically, get the memo and take over the pace setting duties. Those two clearly having some communication right now. They're working hard together. They have dropped Nira Rakundo. She's working really hard in no woman's land right now just to remain focused on these two, but there's clearly a race plan at play between our leaders Karan and Larkin as we see a really similar scenario playing out, again with our chasers in the form of Black and Berube.
Karan looking for her first Canadian title, Larkin her third. And they're running according to their hip number right now. Karan in first, Larkin in second.
These two, again, with so much NCAA experience, you can't discount what that means, especially in these longer races, because this is championship style racing, and they've had lots of flavors of that throughout their careers. Like I said, Karan at Penn State, Larkin in her first pro season after competing for the New Mexico Lobos and then for Northern Arizona University, and she is regaining the lead. This is really difficult to call. I think they both look great. A little bit of a check there by Karan. I just wonder if she's starting to feel the effects of this. We know that Gracelyn Larkin is a really tough competitor. She is going to fight to the end no matter what. And if she feels the pressure of Karan on her outside, she'll just keep cranking things down, put the screws to her, and make things hurt.
Well, you mentioned the NCAA experience for Karan. She is coming off the NCAA championships less than a week ago. She finished 11th there. So how are her legs going to feel this her second 10,000 in less than 8 days as they come up to the 8K split? They're going to go through this in 26:50.
Yeah, the legs are definitely feeling it. There's a lot of travel, too. Again, those NCAA championships all the way on the other side of the continent. They were in Eugene, Oregon. So it's a ton of travel. It's a ton of, difficult recovery between those events. And there's the emotional component. You can't discount that. You got to get yourself so up for these races and then to bring yourself down enough to be able to recover and then come back up for a Canadian championship. That being said, the flip side of that coin, Adam, is you're just absolutely bursting with confidence, knowing what you're capable of and saying, why not go for it? I've got nothing to lose. I'm going to put all of myself out there. The interesting thing about this as we get into the end of this race is that these athletes are actually very closely matched when it comes to their 10K abilities. But Gracelyn Larkin, again, she has a 15:21 5K to her name. 16:30 is Jade Berube's best. So you got to think like the wheels, if you're a bettor, the wheels go to Larkin. At the same time, she's done so much more work than has Karan throughout this 10K race. So it's really difficult to call this one right now.
Well, they're getting quicker. That last kilometer was 3:19.
And that's unusual, to be increasing the tempo, to be increasing the pace when you're hurting the most, but you still have some running left to go. A lot of these athletes can turn out a really great last 800, last 600, last 400. But for your third to last 1,000 to be one of your fastest, that's really stellar running. There you see a great shot of our leading duo coming up on our chasing duo with Salome Nirakundo splitting the difference behind. She's not out of it yet. She's still in picture. But this is the most gap we've seen between Larkin and Karan, I think, this entire race. It's not much, but it's not nothing. And there you see, again, Black and Berube trying to use Dwyer as their focus. Adam, I misspoke earlier. I'm sorry. You know, I should have mentioned that Florence Caron actually has a 15:25 5,000 meter best to her name. I was looking at some incorrect information. So when it comes to the speed end of this race, these two athletes almost identically matched. This is going to be a thrilling last few laps.
They're coming up to the 9 kilometer split. And they will go through 9 kilometers about, let's call it 30:09. And that is another 3:19 kilometer.
I talked about metronomic focus, metronomic pacing, but this level of consistency is so impressive. This is the first time I've seen Gracelyn Larkin looking like she is ready to start moving things on Caron. Caron is just leaning back a little bit with her upper body. That is a symbol of fatigue. Look at the slight forward lean in the shoulders of Larkin. She looks ready to strike. But every time she creates a little daylight, Caron says, I don't think so. I'm coming back on your shoulder. I'm going to let you know I'm here. And you better believe I'm down for the fight in the last 600.
Larkin trying to pull away from Caron with about 600 left to go in this Canadian Championship race. But Caron not going anywhere. And Caron moves herself back into the lead.
Caron makes a bold move. She's been sitting behind for most of the race, and now she's pressing.
Well, I talked earlier about that slight backwards lean of Caron. She is obviously not showing signs of fatigue, and this was such a beautiful strategic move. She knew that they were coming up on some traffic, so she took advantage of that to take the jump and just surprise Larkin, I think, a little bit there. As soon as she made the pass around those women that she was coming up on, she's coming up on Bell Lap now. This is going to be 32:03, 32:05 unofficially, and look at the wheels of Caron. She is going for it. This is going to be a very fast last lap.
Caron slamming her foot down on the gas right now, pulling away from Larkin. She's coming off an 11th place finish at the NCAA Championships earlier, or I guess last week now. She ran 32:33.71 there. She has a look back over her shoulder to assess where she is in relation to Larkin.
We got to mention, she's a 4:33 miler. This is in her wheelhouse. She has gears, and she is churning through them right now. And every time she passes another athlete, that is a line of sight that Larkin doesn't have. Caron is running away with this thing.
Well, Caron has run this to perfection. She's into the final straightaway. And it's going to be Florence Caron picking up her first Canadian title. She is the 10,000 meter champion in 2025. And here comes Larkin across for second. So Larkin's strong 2025 continues after her victory at the 10K Championships. She picks up the second place finish here at the 10,000 meter championships. And here comes Rarakundo. And she is going to cross in third place. 33:18.84 for Caron to take the win. 33:28.07 for Larkin for second.
And what a battle developing here down the backstretch. 200 meters to go as Berube cruises away from Black. Again, those two working together in tandem for so much of this race. And what a close here by Jade Berube as she pulls away from black and moves her way into 4th position.
Several times in the U Sports Championship, that's Berube in the neon, top and shoes, kicking hard down the home straightaway. Berube, the winner before.
And Berube comes to the line, and she will finish 4th.
Adam, if ever you wondered what it takes out of you, I was going to say, if you ever wonder what it takes out of you, you can take a look at those women just sprawled on the track on this warm evening. There's Laura Desjardins working hard to her finish. But a great close by Jade Berube there. She does not have a personal best in the 10,000 meter listed, but that is a big improvement. That 34.50 is a big improvement on her lifetime best on the track, or on the road, I should say. So several times under 35 minutes for her. That was Laurence Gauthier, again, the only returner from last year's championship. Coming across the line, she was 5th last year in 35.32. This year, she is 6th in 35.53. That has got to feel so good for our winner. You see her wiping her face on a friend's shirt, getting some kudos from the sideline. She is wearing her Penn State kit. Florence Caron in her first Canadian championship title at this distance. She looks annoyingly refreshed already, Adam. Thumbs up. Really happy with that, and again, a perfectly timed kick. She was 32.05 on the clock with a lap to go, closes out her race in 33.18. So that is a really swift 73-second final lap, and here she goes to congratulate her fellow competitors. What a thrilling race.
Taking a look at the splits for Caron. Her last kilometer, 3:09. Florence Caron picks up her first Canadian title, 33.18.84, to win the women's 10,000 meter crown.
Fabulous tactics at play, lots of good teamwork between these athletes. I think that made all the difference and came to a kicker's finish. You could have mistaken that for a 1500 close. Wonderful running there by Florence Caron, again taking her first national title, and wow, that turnover. Really impressive coming off of a 10,000 meter championship just a week ago. That sets the stage for our last race of the day, Adam, our second 10,000 meter championship in the men's side. But before we get there, Caron 33.18.84, 33.28.07 for Larkin. And Nira Rakundo will pick up 3rd position at 33.55.23. As you mentioned,